Good morning, everyone. It's September the 29th, 2023. As you can hear in my Julie's last video that she just put up about the bullying, and now you've heard from Julie what she has to say, but there's still always so much more to say. And one of the things, it's not only the guys that are bullying here, the girls are also bullying as well, other girls. So there's a huge bullying problem that is going on and needs to be addressed as well, which is leading to a lot of the violence. For example, this is why we hear everybody screaming, one of the reasons why we hear everybody screaming at night out our windows, and we cannot always sleep down here. So this is a big problem that we're having. So the other thing is, you're talking about, Julie is mentioning all about the bullying, yes, but just how horrible it is. And she's experiencing it firsthand. The girls are experiencing it firsthand. Now they're talking about it amongst themselves. What can they do? From self-defense courses, which nobody can really afford, to what have they got handy? What do they have to do? Buy mace, bear spray, hot sauce, which is easy to get because they want to throw something at these guys that are bullying them and these girls that are bullying them. So we have a huge problem down here, and the bullying always leads to violence no matter what. And all we hear is from our counselors. Last week we heard again from the Centertown counselor, which is bordering Lowertown where I am. And I told you in the fall we were getting word that what was happening down here in Lowertown was spreading further into Centertown, and that's where, of course, Julie's two friends got stabbed there recently, one who was in the wheelchair that I put up on the video. And it's definitely hitting because one of my girlfriends was walking down Elgin Street the other day and has never seen so many street people on the street panhandling down Elgin Street. So they're moving. They're on the move. They're coming. So we really need to do something about this. And it's not an easy problem. And like I said, a lot of the problems with the bullying and what's happening is, yes, the police pick them up, these guys, and they arrest them, and they get out on bail. Another problem is some of these guys that have been in prison for a while, they end up on the streets after being through the halfway houses and that. So you've got this violence pattern that keeps repeating itself constantly, where the old guys from the jails teach the younger guys how to do things as well. So this is one huge problem we have, and it's, as I said, it's layered, it's compounded, layer after layer here to get through. So I know I'd like to mention something too. As you can see, I'm wearing my orange shirt today because every child matters, and tomorrow is Truth and Reconciliation Day as well here in Canada, and with our children from the residential schools and that, and the bodies that they keep finding on the grounds of the old residential schools. So it's going to be kind of a sad day. Hopefully I'm going to be there too, representing our Indigenous culture. But I also thought of, how do we punish these people? How do we deal with this? And it brought back a memory that I was talking to an elder one time, and speaking of Truth and Reconciliation, we were in a conversation about the residential schools and the abuse, and of course sexual abuse came up. And so I asked the elder a question, and I said, well, long before the Europeans even first set foot on the North American continent, or also known as Turtle Island, what in the Indigenous society, how did our culture deal if our women were being raped or our children were being sexually assaulted as well? And he said, well, we had our rules, we had our regulations, and the main rule was that when it was found out, they were stripped of everything. They knew that they were banished, literally, from the village. So what would happen is that they were handed their bow and arrow. Of course, that's what they had back then. And they had to know. And of course, growing up, when you're in the bush, you have to survive. And you have to know how to survive. So what happened was, it wasn't hanging or anything like that. Like, we had capital punishment in our society. But what happened was they banished them. Then they did the walk of shame to the village, where the villagers, the children, would all line up on each side. He'd have to walk down the middle of them, and then they would turn their backs as he came up and approached in shame that you did this to our women or our children. Now you're going to have to go out and live by yourself in the wilderness and know how to survive. If you can do that, you're going to be very lucky. So thinking of that too, I'm thinking, well, that's maybe not such a bad idea because, being a baby boomer, we've been so pampered, and our ancestors went through the 2 wars and the Depression era, and so we kind of got spoiled. They gave us everything they possibly could, and then we spoiled our children. And they're acting sometimes like spoiled brats, the children and the young people today. Not all young people, I'm not putting everyone in that boat, because we still have some very, very good, sensible young people that are still in our society. Thank goodness we haven't lost everybody yet. But the drugs are certainly taking a toll on our society. So here's another suggestion, and it's just a suggestion, and in my opinion, perhaps we need to go back a few steps, and it wouldn't be such a bad idea. Maybe what we need to do is take a person as punishment, because the prisons are not working, and literally put one of the ankle bracelets on so we have a tracking device, and put a person out in the wilderness. We have lots of provincial parks. We could do that, so we could keep track of them with our definitely our technology, and just hand them a hunting knife, and that would be about it. So that definitely a survival book. Oh yeah. So they'd have to learn how to use that survival book to survive themselves, and leave them out there for up to a week, depending on what they've done. Because most people can survive for a week without water and that, but we can still keep track of them. And then when they've finally finished out just how nice to be back maybe in our society again, is go have our police pick them up in the helicopter with a couple of police dogs there, make sure we've got our tracking dogs there, and so that they're most likely going to be happy to drop the knife, because if they have to figure out how to fish without a fishing pole and do the things the old way, and even having to rub sticks together to start a fire, they need to know that. They're going to have to do that and realize that, gosh, they're being handed everything on a silver platter. Like we have the drop-in centers too, and we have the food trucks, and even just hearing from the mission again and Chef Rick, that just how many people are having to be fed and that, and people are scrambling, and the mental health. But that's just my opinion, because apparently what happened with the Indigenous people years ago definitely worked, or it got to the point where it wasn't worth assaulting, I should say, our women and our children. And yes, and growing up, I remember I was a young teen when capital punishment was abolished here in Canada, and back then that was one of the things that the adults used, was to keep us scared straight. Maybe we need to go back and look at some of the old methods and try and update them to today's methods. But we have a real big problem, and I'm just updating you. And like I said, trying to get all this put together and all we get promising, it's going to be next spring or next summer by the time we're going to get the system up. And that's also going to depend on, because they want a nonprofit group running it. That's an awful lot to put together in such a short period of time. And we're all stuck in this boat. So that's where I'm kind of going to leave you for today. And I appreciate everyone for listening. And just to remind you, September the 30th is coming up tomorrow. It's Yellow Shirt Day. And please wear your shirts if you can, and honor our Indigenous people. And that's what I have to say today. And everyone, take care. and have a nice day, and be safe, be careful, and I'll talk to you again soon. And bye-bye. Take care.